Call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone. If you remind you to turn off your cell phones, and if you will stand, let's pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'd like to welcome Mr. Brent Bolick to do our invocation.
Thank you. Let's pray together. Father, we give you thanks for this day. We give you thanks for this place and a beautiful creation that you have given us, and a wonderful place to live and call home and work and play. And Lord, we thank you for your provision. We thank you, Lord, for your love. We thank you for your redemption. We thank you for this town and for the larger community around it. We thank you, Lord, for the mayor and for the board of aldermen. And Lord, tonight I want to pray that in each decision that is to be undertaken in this place, that there would be clarity. We pray, Lord, that there would be unity. And we pray, Lord, that there would be wisdom. We pray tonight for the health of each of the aldermen and all the folks that work in and around the town, that you would continue, Lord, to bless and guide Black Mountain as she welcomes visitors, as she cares for the needy, and as she serves the needs of each other. We pray that you will guide in all things, and we ask these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Brent.
Thank you.
Okay, announcements. I don't have anything, but we do have a proclamation award recognition of our own Miss Maggie Tuttle. And here we go.
Coming up next on Act 2, you take a retired math teacher, had a problem, and you get a new purpose in life. That's next. Hi, I'm Brenda, and welcome to this premiere edition of Act 2. Thank you so much for joining us. Got a question for you. Have you ever had an event in your life that just turned things around? Well, retired math teacher Maggie Tuttle certainly has, and the result was a different kind of lesson plan, one that led to a whole new purpose in life.
There are 5 aldermen and 1 mayor. Yes, I'm the only woman. I am Margaret Maggie Tuttle, and I was a high school math teacher for 33 years.
Yeah, she's a former student.
After retiring, I taught part-time for about 5 years. And then a little bump in the road called breast cancer that I dealt with took a year to get through that whole process. And I felt so blessed and had lots of time to think. And I thought, it is time for me to give back to this community what it has given to me. I put my name in the hat and ran, and scared to death at first, but I knew I was a good people person. And I knew I was a team player, somebody that knew how to work with people. Hey! Looks like you guys got your hands full. Isn't that beautiful? It's how hard the employees work. I think that's my focus. You want to make sure the employees are taken care of.
I'm going to talk to you about 2 sets of numbers.
6 years. And it's been quite a learning experience. One of the best things to come from it is meeting all the neat people that I've met, that I would not otherwise have met.
My presentation is going to be brief.
And understanding how our town and what it takes to run a government, no matter how small. It's a lot more complicated than people think.
I hear a nomination for the appointment of Vice Mayor for the Town of Black Mountain.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Alderwoman Maggie Cullen for Vice Mayor.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Congratulations there.
I'm counting on you staying healthy and wise. I will leave the wealthy off. I'm counting on you to stay. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Congratulations on your vice mayor.
There are all sorts of volunteer committees that you can be part of, and that's a good way to get in and kind of see if you think you like that type thing.
Thank you, guys.
It is scary, but it's so worth it. So worth it. So worth it.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this story, so go to act2stories.com and let us know what you think. There's also some other information on that website that might interest you. Now, coming up in 2 weeks, we're going to meet a dentist who found the time to return to his childhood dreams. That's next on Act 2. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Let me make just a few comments. Thank you very much. I'm very proud of this. Had it not, Brenda, who's a hometown girl, she's from Swannanoa, that's hometown. She grew up in Swannanoa and is in the media field now and is trying her hands in doing some production type things. And so if you get a chance, these stories change every 2 weeks. And you can just pull them up on YouTube, Act 2 Stories. But I was her first guinea pig in it, and if I had not known her and trusted her, I would have not done it. But I felt like it would showcase Black Mountain, like we need any showcasing. But I'm very proud of it, and I thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Maggie. And I'm going to just speak on behalf of the board, I think. We're all so very, very proud of Maggie and the work that she's done. She's been one of the rocks and anchors on this board for a long time. And she's the voice of reason and just calm, steady, and plodding along. And we all appreciate her and love her to death. So... Thank you, Maggie.
You're here.
All right, we're going on to citizen comments. I'll remind you that your comments are limited to 3 minutes. I only have one, I think, in this first section. It'll be Marilyn Sabansky.
Marilyn Sabansky, 516 Laurel Avenue.
If you will, stay at the podium, please, ma'am.
I'm short, so signs don't show.
Thank you. Next is communication for boards, Black Mountain Police Department annual report. Sean?
Board of Alderman, Mayor, citizens, thank you for the opportunity to come up and kind of talk about some of the achievements we had in 2018 and some of the accomplishments. So some of the things we'll discuss today will be our call volumes, the impacts that we have made and are continuing to make on the drugs and drug activity here in the town, some of the completed projects, our grants and our grant searches, and our community outreach as well. Our call volumes, of course, in 2018 were 24,185 calls. These numbers look to be a little bit down this year, but the reason being is mid-year we went to a new national incident-based reporting called NIBRS, of course, and it kind of made the numbers askew because of changed reporting values and how things are reported and what gets reported, so it shows our numbers are a little bit lower. But as we go through this presentation, I think you'll see with the rise in numbers of reports and arrests and everything else that those, you can see how these yearly numbers are skewed. Our incident reports in 2018 were 1,056 reports. That shows a 25% growth over the 2017 narcotics reports. 2017 reports taking. And that should be actually a decline, 26.5% decline. Narcotics reports encompass 19% of that. Driving while impaired, another 12%. Larceny, 11%. And then all other offenses, which includes like domestic violence, probation or parole violations, welfare checks, pretrial release, and things of that nature encompassed 10%. And then, of course, there was several other types of calls as well. Go to the next one. Our arrests made were 432. That is a 13.6% increase over last year. The largest percentage, again, falls into what is categorized now through NIBRS as all other offenses, which include driving while license revoked, resisting public officers, any kind of weapons violations, things of that nature. That encompassed about 162 arrests. Our narcotics arrests accounted for 104 arrests. Warrant services accounted for 37. Driving while impaired, 30 arrests. And then drug paraphernalia was another 17 arrests. Our state citations, we wrote 748 state citations last year. Again, all other offenses, which includes things such as revoked registration, failure to register, fictitious registration, and then weapons violations through traffic stops as well. Encompassed 329 citations. Driving while license revoked were 130 citations. And speeding was 100 citations, which we've really been working on that. Just in the month of December, we clocked through the interstate and even in town vehicles at 90 to 130 miles an hour. So we're really trying to crack down on a lot of the speeding that's coming through our area. Warrant service was 37 arrests. Driving while impaired, again, were 30 arrests. Citations. And the one thing I will throw into this statistic, while 784 state citations seem like a lot of citations, we issued 484 warning citations and 1,379 verbal warnings, which equivalent to about you're 2.5 times more likely to get a warning of some sort rather than something with punitive damages to it. And that is all because we're trying to educate the community when we make these stops and things like that. And we're really trying to get people to be more cognizant, more safe while they're on the streets and traveling in our streets within the town. Our vehicle accidents, as you can see, accidents involving property damage encompass the majority of what we do. So that was 219 accidents. Accidents with unknown injury were 57. Hit and run with property damage only was 51. And then accidents involving personal injury was 14 accidents, which is drastically down. If you look at our numbers, these figures show a decrease of 7% over last year and over a 13% decrease over 2016 as well. So being more proactive and being out and through public education with the community, we're able to start seeing, the effects of this public education by seeing these numbers decline in accidents. So the thing that has really been encompassing a lot of our time, again, when I first got here, I really thought that we would be dealing with a lot of street level, just people with, minor possessions, things of that nature, but we haven't. We have really stepped into being able to move deeper into the investigations and really hit those that are doing the damage to our community. And we've done that through the position that we were granted last year through pulling out of the BCATs with the county, and then also taking away some of our overtime budget and reallocating that toward this officer, our narcotics position, then also through the PACE team and their proactivity. And what we have seen is a 25% increase in 2017 over 16, and now we've seen another 62.5% increase over last year's drug arrests and the impacts we've had. And a lot of that has to do with our partnership with Homeland Security, which we'll talk about a little bit later when we get to some of the other stuff, and you can go through. The next few is just showing kind of some of the bust and results of the things that we've had. A lot of the That's one of the larger ones. And again, if you look, a lot of this stuff we're dealing with is methamphetamine, fentanyl, heroin. We are seeing some carfentanyl. And to give you, and you can stay right there, to give you kind of some aspects of how dangerous like the fentanyl and the carfentanyl is, for non-opioid users, 1 gram of fentanyl is enough to kill almost 1,100 people, non-opioid people. Just in one bust alone, we took over 8 grams off of one individual. And this is what has been, plaguing law enforcement in our searches and stuff. This stuff's absorbed through the skin. But one of the things, and I think John may be able to attest to, is when we started pulling some of these larger amounts of fentanyl off the street, there was a time mid-year last year that we started seeing a decline in overdose throughout, our jurisdiction, which we took a major player out. And he has been prosecuted on a federal level, and we'll talk about those as well later on. The majority, again, that we're seeing is marijuana, and we're seeing a lot of the derivatives that come from marijuana. We're not seeing as much of the green leafy marijuana. We're seeing more of where they're cooking out the THC, and they're making what they call butter with it. And what you got to keep in mind is what we're dealing with there is about 4 times more potent than what you would get out of the green leafy type drug of marijuana. Again, we're also dealing with methamphetamine and heroin. That is our 3 largest drugs that we see right now here in Black Mountain. You go next. No, back up. One more. There you go. So looking at this diagram here, the majority, again, what came out of the Schedule 6, but again, keep in mind that those 13,468 grams that we took out right there, the majority of that was derivatives of some way, shape, or form. It wasn't the green leafy marijuana. We had 117 grams of Schedule 3, which is like your steroids and opioids, 2,077 grams of your Schedule 1, or your Schedule 2 rather, which is methamphetamine, crack, and crack cocaine, and then also your Schedule 1 is going to be your heroin, fentanyl, and carfentanyl. With that being said, we took 16,108 grams were seized off of the streets. That differs a little bit from what I put into what you guys were given, because a few of those cases have actually come full circle, and we were able to add those statistics into this.
Chief, does that go over to the evidence room at the Sheriff's Department?
No, we have our own evidence room. And the good thing is what we end up doing with a lot of this stuff, like the fentanyl, the methamphetamine and stuff like that, working with Homeland Security, we're able to deliver it to their labs, and we're able to get it processed a lot quicker. We did have one bust that the young man had it. He had 12 grams of what he thought was cocaine. When we got the results back and went to court about 2 or 3 weeks ago, it came back 99% fentanyl. So this guy would have snorted what he thought was cocaine and would have immediately killed him.
So I'm just aware, had this on my mind just because of on the county side.
Right.
Do you have a regular audit of your evidence room?
We have several checks and balances in place, absolutely. And we're getting ready to switch over and increase the size by moving our evidence to another room. But we have a new tagging system to get evidence in and out. We also have worked with the district attorney's office to ensure that we have those checks and balances in place that so we don't run into the issues that Asheville and other places have. Absolutely.
Great.
So I think the big thing to keep in mind with the 1,600 or 16,108 grams, that equates to almost $750,000 in street value of drugs and narcotics that were taken off our streets here in town. Again, it's kind of mind-boggling. I figured we wouldn't see this, but again, keep in mind a lot of this is what we catch traveling through. We just don't want it coming through. We also seized $156,737, and that doesn't represent the state side. That's only what we've seized and taken through federal courts at this time. There's additional monies that'll be coming through on the state side. The sad portion is it takes so long for it to work through the process, but once it starts coming, I'm hoping with the leaps and bounds that we've been making, we'll start seeing more of a steady flow of that kind of drug seizure funds coming into the town to help us with budget concerns and capital items we need.
When you say a lot of it flowing through, do you mean off stops on the interstate?
I do. Well, just in town and the interstate in combination.
Yeah.
And when I talk about it's starting to flow steady. Once we start getting some of these court cases, it has to go through and be totally adjudicated before they can release those funds. But once these cases start getting totally adjudicated, we'll start seeing, larger sums deposited into our drug asset forfeiture funds as we move along. So, again, we talk about seizures and we talk about money, but some of the things that we have worked with Homeland Security to do is, again, try to help. We're looking for ways to try to help the town and help our department as well through being able to get things, through seizure. One of the things that we just recently got was a 2015 King Ranch truck. The truck's valued at about $45,000. We put about $13,500 into it for the emergency equipment. Our K9 car was getting a little older and aged, and so we turned this vehicle into, of course, a K9 unit for the new K9. Again, saving the town copious amounts of money. The other way, which is really kind of 50-50 with me, is it's important to get the drugs off the street so they're not dispersed. But again, last year we were seeing a lot of officers who were accidentally getting overdosed through, going through a car, doing searches, and being exposed to fentanyl. So we worked with Project Lazarus to get Narcan injectors. The officers were to have the Narcan injectors for their safety in case they were exposed. But in this past year, we were able to save and make a difference in 4 people's lives here in Black Mountain that had overdosed and were or technically dead, and it reduced those effects of the opioids on them and saved their lives. So, we're seeing a much greater response from our guys in trying to add a little more safety and helping the citizens out here in the town. So I talked earlier about the partnership with Homeland Security. This partnership has reaped so many rewards already for us. It's allowed us to be able to investigate the narcotics and stuff coming through the town by allowing us to put in the overtime it takes to work these cases. So far in 2018, the later half of 2018, we invested a little over 210 hours into overtime. We were reimbursed $5,037 of that already through Homeland Security through what they call slot funds, and we have an additional $2,881. That's just 2018. We've already accrued some in 19 as well, and they're reimbursing those funds to us. They've also bought us equipment. We were running into much larger quantities of narcotics than what we typically do, so we needed scales. We needed cameras with lenses. We purchased it, they reimbursed us. The partnership has also provided much harsher penalties to those that commit crimes, especially narcotics crimes here in the town. We, in 2018, charged 8 individuals with everything from trafficking Schedule 1 and 2 narcotics, distribution of Schedule 1 and 2 narcotics, conspiracy to traffic Schedule 1 and 2 narcotics, conspiracy to distribute 1 and 2 narcotics, possession of a firearm, and the furtherance of a narcotic crime, and financial crimes to include tax evasion and hiding assets garnered through illicit means. Through those convictions, we were able to get out of the 8 offenders a minimum of 241 years in the federal penitentiary. We have also, we have 3 people that has been charged. They've pled guilty, and they are awaiting sentencing, and those 3 individuals, a total, are looking at somewhere close to 118 years of time in the federal system as well. So our completed projects this year, through the help with the support of the Board of Aldermen, we've been able to accomplish a whole lot in a very short time. And one of those is the body camera. So Lieutenant Austin, back in 2017, started writing a grant for body cameras. And this was a match grant, but it gave us the opportunity to get body cameras so we would have a lot of coverage. And beforehand, we only had it when we were near the car. Now it's with us at all times. This grant allowed us to purchase 22 cameras, a docking station, and a computer system which met with the strict guidelines that for the evidence chain of custody. It's an invaluable tool. It helps us to kind of look at our day-to-day operations, how we're doing business, our interactions with people, and kind of look and see how we can improve and do better. But it also helps when we have complaints. Since having the body cameras, we've had four complaints. I think it's been 2 official through filing, a written complaint, and then 2 were just verbally kind of called in. We do an administrative review. The body camera footage helps us expedite this, but more importantly, what the body cameras did provide is the fact that it proved the allegations to be false, and it proved that what was told on the officers wasn't true. That not only protects the officers, it protects the town too. And I think that in itself, the weight of that is much more important than even the cost. It's going to save us in the long term from any complaints, lawsuits, things of that nature. So K9 Briscoe retired after 8 years. He was with Sergeant Staten. We started back early in 18 and took letters of intent from any of the officers who were interested in being a K9 officer. We did a very thorough process. We had the people that actually owned the K9 come up and set the panel with us and help us to select the individual. And then, of course, ultimately, Logan Newhouse was selected as the new K9 officer in 2018. He went down and met his new partner, Cayman, who is a Belgian Malinois. He's a multi-purpose drug detection, narcotics, tracking, and apprehension dog. What is very good about the demeanor of this dog is you can take him and walk through the schools, and he's like, well, he still is a pup, but you can tell he wants to be petted, he wants to be loved on, and he loves the attention from the children. And then you can turn around and put him outside a car to do a narcotic search or a track, and he knows it's time for business. So it's really hard to find a Belgian Malinois that can switch back and forth like that, but this dog is perfect. He's great. We've had him in the schools multiple times. The kids love him. They look forward to him coming into the schools, and he's been a great addition. Already he's made an impact through approximately 8 or 9 searches, and every one of them but one has revealed narcotics. The one that did not turn up any weight of narcotics was just based off the fact that they just delivered. So last year we started, well actually in 2017 with the rise in working the narcotics, we started seeing that we needed something a little more here in town. We wanted a quicker response We wanted better training for the staff to be able to serve search warrants, narcotic search warrants, fugitive apprehension, and things of that nature. We had the department and those that were interested submitted a letter of intent. We said interviews. We had a very, very difficult agility course, and then they had to also qualify at a much, much higher standard than what you would qualify even for state certification. So we put a lot of stringent things on this for you to be a member of this team. We pulled in through AB Tech and was able to do our SRT certification in-house, which what it ultimately did is it kept overtime down on the town. It didn't affect the budget. And we were able to hold it in-house and get every one of our officers SRT certified. I think the key thing to remember with this SRT team is when we hear SRT SWAT, whatever you hear, you tend to think that it's tactical. This team is not just tactical. This team is very well versed in rescue, woodland operations, negotiations, personal protection, crowd control, search warrant service, mutual aid to the surrounding agencies. And during the very short time of its existence, we've already accumulated on a 12-man team almost 2,100 hours in training to advance those skills. Just a little bit of statistics to let you know how good this team is. The average response time for our team to respond to a call here in Black Mountain is 35 minutes. If you look at Buncombe County's SRT team, they have a call-out time of 2 hours and 15 minutes. If you look at APD, you're looking at an hour and 45 minutes that it could take before they're on scene. But we have averaged out of all of our calls 35 minutes and we're on scene as a team. Since the inception, we've executed 8 narcotic search warrants. We've executed 5 violent offender arrests, assisting with the U.S. Marshals. We've had 5 mutual aid requests, which resulted in the arrest of the offender, and as well as seizing weapons and narcotics. We had one person barricaded in the home with a weapon and wouldn't come out. And then they responded to all 3 inclement weather events we had this past year. Out of all the events that we responded to, there were no injuries to the officers or the suspects. Everyone came out unscathed. So that's a testament to the skill that these men and women have on this team. One of the things when I first got here, talked to the staff, they had talked about what's the biggest concern you have here at the department, and they talked about the radio issues. And again, if you're smart, you sit back and you kind of watch, and sure enough, as I watched and I evaluated, we were having issues with batteries not staying charged, staying in direct contact with our communications. So we sought out and started talking to Wireless Communication, who does a lot of the surrounding agencies. Worked with them in the past, great group of people. After quite a few months of negotiations, came up with a scenario that fit the town. Benefited the town in 2 ways. Number one, it provided the department with much needed quality communications equipment. And then secondly, through the negotiations, we were able to save the town approximately $200,000. Once the proposal was written, we brought it to the council, and like I said, you guys have been very, very supportive to, make sure that we're well taken care of, and for that, we're definitely deeply grateful for that. We implemented this project this past year, and we implemented in 3 phases. The first phase actually replaced the handhelds and the in-car radios. Immediately, even under the old VHF system, because of the way the transmitting and sending and receiving signals in these new radios, we immediately seen better receiving, reception, and communications with our dispatch. Secondly, we upgraded our communication center. This allowed us to go to what's called Viper. It's a voice interoperability plan for emergency responders. Again, once we went to Viper, our tower locks in with all the other Viper towers. It gives us just a greater range of coverage within the town and even outside the town. But it also opened up our lines of communication with those other agencies that come in and support us, and we help support them as well. So immediately we're able to communicate much, much better, much quicker with these people. And then phase 3 of it, which just got completed a month or so ago, was the upgrade to the VHF repeater. We upgraded this because occasionally they may take Viper down temporarily to do like maintenance on the Viper system, but it allows us to continue operations without any interruption to the citizens. We also implemented some new decals. The one thing that I'll say about the new decals is these guys wanted something that kind of spoke to Black Mountain. They wanted people to be able to recognize it, and they felt like through what they designed that this is a much better decal in the sense that it markets our town and our department much better. It's more easily recognizable from a greater distance, and not only that, it's quickly recognizable as a police vehicle. And so we implemented these, and we've got a lot of great feedback from the implementation of this. Our grants, we have been awarded a $24,500 no-match grant. This replaces our MDTs and our printers that are outdated. We are waiting on the funds to be released on this, but we have been awarded this grant. It's coming. The second grant that we got, the Governor's Highway Safety Program, through points, through click it and tickets, DWI checkpoints, things of that nature, we accrued enough points. We were one of the few agencies who accrued enough points that we were able to apply for this grant. This grant is valued at about $51,775. $40,500 of it goes toward the car, a vehicle, and the installation of the equipment. $4,075 of it goes for the in-car video camera system. $400 of it's for an in-car printer. We were able to get 5 portable breath testing machines at $3,000, and then 2 dual band radars at $3,800. Upcoming grant opportunities, they're getting ready to open up the Governor's Crime Commission grant again for up to $25,000. We will again be applying for that to look at ways to maybe offset some of the capital needs of the department, some of the equipment that is beginning to age. And then also we have some ballistic vests that are reaching their lifespan. So we will be looking at going through and using the Department of Justice, North Carolina League of Municipalities. By doing this, what it does is essentially a vest that would typically cost the town somewhere between $600 and $700 will cost us roughly about $150 to $175 through this grant. Our community initiatives, pretty much like last year, it was much better this year. We had a lot better response at our booth at Sourwood. People knew we were going to be there. We had people coming up to talk to us and reach out to us. We use Sourwood again. The big thing is we want to make ourselves accessible outside of a professional environment to the community, and this is just one way we're able to do that. Citizens can come up and hang out and talk to us, but we also use it because of our Thanksgiving and Christmas initiatives and trying to help the town. We sell our t-shirts there. We do raffles to try to raise money so we can do some of the holiday initiatives that we typically do. Coffee with a Cop, just had one this past Saturday. Had a lot of people saying that why don't you have it on the weekend? We work through the week, or we don't get up this early, or whatever. And sure enough, I mean, if we had a great attendance this past Saturday at Starbucks. We will continue to do that. This is a good time for the community to step out and talk with us. There's no agenda to these meetings. It gives them the opportunity to directly approach us, talk to us with any concerns, questions, ways we can improve business. And so it's just a great time to hang out and open the lines of communication between us and the citizens. Again, our community outreach, we still believe that we have to invest time in our children. We feel like that if we can invest that time with the children, that it will lessen the stress on the child when we're around, but maybe even lessen that stress with the parent who is stressed out around law enforcement as well. So we try to take our time. We spend lots of time in the schools, and we get a lot of time working with these schools as well through our SRT team. They open up their doors, let us use it, so we can be prepared in the event we have some sort of situation there. Also, with talking about the schools, we're looking to expand our outreach to our school age young people. During 2013, I've got a couple of officers who are looking into a program. It will be a cadet corps program. The program will consist of youth between 15 and 20, mainly from the high schools. There will be criteria set for those to participate in this cadet corps. Some of the criteria that we're looking at is like maintaining a 2.5 GPA, having high ethical standards, showing interest in the law enforcement career field. But that's still in the early stages, but we are hoping to get that started sometime in the upcoming budget year. Again, our community outreach Thanksgiving meals. We feel, very deeply that our job isn't just to write tickets. We're here to take care of our citizens, and I think that when you talk to a lot of the members of the police department, they are most definitely servants. And I feel like we need to be servants to the community. This year with the Thanksgiving meals, we were able to up that. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we provided 12 families with Thanksgiving and Christmas meals. And again, this included your hams or turkey and all the trimmings and desserts and drinks. But we were also able to help 16 elderly folks in our community. And we provided them with non-perishable food items that would help sustain them through the holidays. Can't tell you how much it means to be able to go out and see in these people's eyes, the appreciation, and be able to sit around and talk for a few minutes. And Mayor Collins and Town Manager Harold was able to go out, a couple times with us on some of these deliveries, and they can attest to how fortunate we are to be able to give back to the community. I can't say enough, and we can't do it without the help of our businesses and our people buying the shirts or making donations to the department to be able to do this outreach. Likewise, our Christmas outreach, we almost doubled it this year. It's grown exponentially. This year we were able to help 18 families totaling 29 children. When we first started, we adopted 9 children right off the bat. Of course, Jamie's guys in Public Works did a little fundraiser, and they donated some money, and we were able to adopt 10 more. And then my guys wanted to do a no-shave December, and they come up with a lot of money, and so we adopted 10 more. So it just kind of kept growing. But as long as the money kept coming in, we were going to spend the money and try to help those in our community because, again, that's what we're here for. We're here to be servants of our citizens and give back. I can't tell you how meaningful it is when you have so many gifts and you have to put the word out there that we need help wrapping gifts. And we had 35 people from here at Town Hall, from the fire department, from citizens out in the community and other departments here in the town come over to the training room, and we broke up into groups and kind of had our first elf wrapping party, so to speak, which what would have took us weeks on weeks to wrap, we wrapped in just a few hours with all that help. But it means a lot to see people turn out to support their community and try to help. And again, I can't say how fortunate I feel to work in a community that has such a heart that they're willing to step out and help others. It just means a lot. So in closing, I've taken up a lot of your time. This year was a great success, but it was only a great success because of the support that we have from the Board of Aldermen and our citizens. We can't do what we do, and we can't be successful without the support of you guys. Our federal partnerships were able to save the town money and overtime budget, but it also, more importantly, held violent offenders and drug dealers more accountable for their crimes within the town. The partnerships and bonds that we built with our citizens, we reap rewards of that through being able to give back to the community and provide Christmas and Thanksgiving to the communities. And I'll leave you with just saying that, we don't take the job as police officers here in Black Mountain lightly. We believe that we are true servants and we have one purpose, and that's to make a positive difference in our town. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's all I have, and I'll be willing to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, Josh, our consent agenda.
So item A will be adoption of minutes. January 10th, 2019 agenda session minutes, January 14th, 2019 regular session minutes, and January 14th, 2019 closed session minutes. Item B will be a call for public hearing for closure of the remainder of an unopened platted portion of First Street. If you'll recall, a couple months ago we did close a portion of First Street that does connect to this, that was petitioned by the person that adjoins that unopened right of way. This portion is about 75 feet in length, roughly 30 feet in width, that was requested to be added to that petition, but come to find out it needs to be done separately. So the planning board did recommend that this section, like I said, 30 foot in width, 75 foot in length, be closed. And C would be the resolution accepting the contribution of Buncombe County Riverwalk Greenway funding, interlocal agreement. The county has given the town of Black Mountain $400,000 to be spent over a 3-year period, and this money is to go towards the local match for our Riverwalk Greenway Phase 2 funding. The first payment would be $133,000, the second payment $133,000, and the fourth payment $134,000. 19, 20, and 21 would be the years. D is a budget amendment for insurance settlement. This is for an accident a police car was involved in, so this is just some accounting, money out and money back in from insurance, so it was a covered accident. Item E is a budget amendment for the purchase of a police vehicle. This is a partially funded vehicle with grant funding, $17,500 in grant funding. The other $23,000 comes from ABC restricted funds. Item F is salary and compensation rate adjustment. So administration is requesting this adjustment for the golf course superintendent. Currently, that position has been vacant for a number of years. Currently, Mr. Jerry Brigman he's been in that position for, I guess, the past 3 or 4 years or so, and has assumed some of those responsibilities. So town administration would request that he be bumped up to $3,000 a year pay increase. And lastly, you'll have a call for public hearing for text amendments to add graffiti ordinance. This is something the board had kind of directed me to put together. I know the town attorney has done really most of the work, but this will be a call for public hearing for those regulations. And we've looked at some other places and kind of adopted some of what they've done. And this will be coming to you for a public hearing at your next meeting in March. And that'll be it for your consent agenda.
Okay. Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to citizen comments. I think both Elaine and Lisa want to talk about in the hearing, right? Okay. All right. On to unfinished business. Open floor for discussion.
Well, as I mentioned in the agenda meeting, I had spent a good bit of time with our finance director, and Dean had, as you might suspect, just because of the ongoing budget work, has a lot of information on the detail that we talked a little bit about at last month's meeting, about this water purchase and the nuts and bolts of actually how it would work for us in the water fund. And the main concern before we completed and voted on the amendment in front of us is how much capacity we could afford to buy, because we have to pay a commitment fee, if you will, capacity fee for purchasing the water from the city of Asheville. That's in addition to purchasing the water, but you have to pay a capacity fee. It sort of reserves the water for us, if you will. So, the long and short of it is that the agreement as it was, I think actually as the town attorney had presented it to us, we're currently purchasing 200. We would purchase another 100,000 gallons a day 1 year from now, an additional 100,000 gallons a day 2 years from now. Is that right, Ron? Yeah. And so the question was, how much capacity is in that? How much extra capacity? Because we're taking on some new customers from the city of Asheville. We have the Avada business expansion. And so, in looking at that, we arrived at, if we did the purchase just as it was proposed, and that is getting us up to 400,000 a day over the next 2 years, we would, as things look now, have capacity of something in the neighborhood of 100 to 150 extra capacity, because we're using on the average 150 now, and then we're going to add the Asheville City customers, which basically gets us up another 100,000. So that's 250, and then there's a buffer there. It's not, sometimes we go over, so let's sort of say that we're kind of at 300 to make it safe. That gives us really extra capacity of 100. The question is, could we afford that? And as you recall from our last meeting, we discussed going down to 350 instead of 400. But the truth is, after we looked at it, the additional 50,000 gallons a day costs the water fund around $900 a month, and we can afford that. Dean ran the numbers, and if we look only at that water purchase of 400,000 gallons a day and what we project we'll be selling, there's a net margin in there that still makes it work for the water fund. It's basically around $100,000 a year, which may sound like a lot of money, but in an enterprise as large as the water fund, and that's not all, that doesn't really account for all of the cost involved. But the point is, we can afford that. We're not losing money by buying that capacity. So I think that's a little bit long-winded, but I think it was important to lay out where we are. So I think we're back, and I'm recommending what was in the agenda packet was we're currently at 200, adding 100, and then adding 50, and I think we're fine. And I would like to make that recommended change to the agreement as presented in the agenda packet to take it up to 400,000 a day over the next 2 years. So hope all that makes sense, and to my colleagues on the board, hope it makes some sense. But that would be my thinking behind it.
Any comments? Questions?
So I would make the motion that we that with the change, and that would be in Ron B, Section B, Part 3. The city is committed to deliver, the city being the city of Asheville, the city is committed to deliver 400,000 gallons per day beginning June 1, 2021, or immediately after the town has used 400,000 a day. So,
and the contract's written where you've got, I think I put a potential 6-month delay on those, if depending on our use.
Yeah, sounds good. And is there anything else, Ron, that you needed us to address as far as changes with this, in Part D?
The only thing I've got is a blank to fill in on our connection points, but I can deal with the city of Asheville on that and fill that in. The board, that's not a decision the board makes, that's just a physical thing you've got to deal with.
Sounds good. So anyway, I would make a motion with that change in the amendment as presented, amended agreement as presented.
Any discussion? Have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. All righty, we have a public hearing for text amendments to right-of-way closure. This is continued from 1/4/19. I'd like to have a motion to reconvene the public hearing on the ordinance 019-04.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now it's time for public comment.
Good evening. When we last continued this hearing, you asked me to go back to the planning board and see if they had comments about the proposed amendments that Attorney Sneed had put together. And I've provided verbatim comments to you from the planning board. Lisa Milton had comments in support of continuing noticing over and beyond the statutory requirements and was in support of extending that to the 200 feet. And you have those verbatim there, and those are the only comments that we received back. We also sent them in the form of an email with the additional amendment from the 30 to 35 days that Mr. Sneed had mentioned, and we did not receive any comments back to that as well.
If the board remembers, the proposal you have in front of it is pretty much what came up with the planning board, and I had recommended that rather than have a flat, open-ended, notice will be given to everybody within 200 feet. I reworded that notice could be given to anybody up to 200 feet, and the only required notice be given to the adjoining property owners, which is the statutory requirement. And my reason for that is slightly selfish. As a friend of mine said, if you want to test your restrictive covenants, ask a litigator what he thinks of them. There's a lot of court history with that adjacent requirement. So if something comes up, the decision's already been made, they'll answer it for us. And if we don't make the 200 feet a requirement but an option, then we don't get skinned because it was a requirement. We maybe missed somebody. Okay. That's the reasoning behind the change that product.
All righty, Ms. Lisa Milton.
Thank you. Lisa Milton, 406 West State Street. And after Jessica brought this back to us at the planning board, I did some looking as to the things we had discussed and the items that was discussed by the board at the last meeting. And I had some comments that I'd like to share to see if those possibly could clarify some of the problems that we have with that. Many of the street closures are only a couple of parcels who abut those. Some of them have multiple parcels. And some of the biggest problems that we have encountered with road closure requests have come from requests to only close a portion of an unopened road, particularly a portion that is at the start of the unopened road. The instances, two of them that we have encountered, contained lots that were not within the closed portion request, but they were further down the road that was unopened. Two of the lots had no road frontage. Had they not been notified, they would not have been aware that they were going to, at that point, have a landlocked lot. Because with the unopened road, they could request opening it to allow them access to that parcel. Lengths of unopened streets and alleys vary tremendously. By setting a fixed distance from the requested closure, it could result in impacted property owners not receiving notice. If an impacted property owner isn't notified of the closure request and the board votes to close the street, the property owner's recourse is only available to them to appeal to the General Court of Justice, not the Zoning Board of Adjustment, resulting in sizable cost to property owners as well as to the town. If the text amendment contained language that every property owner abutting any part of an unopened street or alley receive notice by certified or registered mail of the closure request, this would better align our code with the general statute number 162A-299. And one other request that I would hope the town would consider, not tonight, maybe it needs discussion, but I would ask that you consider adding text to such that the town may reserve a right, title, and interest in any improvements or easements within a street closed pursuant to the North Carolina General Statute 168-299. These easements could be valuable in the future development of our town. Thanks for your time and consideration. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. All righty. Any discussion? Okay. Motion to close the public hearing?
I had a question. I wanted to make sure I understood. So I do understand. So currently, this is written to say that shall be sent to all abutting property owners, and the notice may be sent. The notice may be sent to owners of property within 200 feet. May. And that's, you just made a comment to that. I guess what I'm not clear is, which I think is a good suggestion, recommendation, because you're not conflicting with what the town attorney's saying. You're saying notice to every property owner that abuts the unclosed road. Any portion of it. Any portion of it. Does that create a problem from your perception,
It's just
Ron?
wording, but the intent, I think, is the same, is if this board, the attitude toward the closing of the streets changes over time, and there was a time when this board would never vote the closing of a section of a street, period. And then obviously, in my mind, if somebody came to you and wanted to close, as Lisa describes, close off the end of a street that would completely landlock everybody, this board probably wouldn't pass that. But how do you get that information? And I think Lisa's approach probably makes better sense. The 200 feet is a pretty arbitrary number. And if you wanted to give this board or the planning board that discretion to notify everybody on the street because the closing even of a part might affect them, then this could be reworded that the board or the planning board may give notice to everybody on adjoining any portion of the street to be closed. And I think that serves my purpose of giving me a lawsuit I can win, and serves the planning board's purpose of giving notice to people who might really be affected by a street closing.
So procedurally, that I would like to. I mean, that'd be my opinion. My preference to move in that direction. And so procedurally, how best do we do that? Do we send it back to the planning board and let you work on language with them?
Well, I think you've got it to work with tonight if everybody's comfortable. But if that's the direction you want to take, then I could change, or by motion, you could change the resolution or the ordinance that's in front of you to read that notice may be sent to all owners of property adjoining any portion of the street to be closed.
Then, do I make a motion now, or we need to close the public hearing?
We need to close the public hearing
First, well, yeah, how do you do that?
If discussion is completed, you probably close the public hearing.
I don't have any more.
What? The difference in language, I mean, abutting, adjoining, same thing, isn't it?
I like abutting. That very firmly says you're touching it.
But isn't that what's said in 3 already?
No, the difference is the 200 feet is the squeaker, I think. Some of these unclosed streets are 400 feet long, 500 feet long. And Lisa's point is we can notify everybody within 200 feet. The guy 300 feet away doesn't know he's about to get landlocked.
Because they don't all abut, that's the problem.
Yeah, I got you.
So we just need to slash the 200
It
feet.
affects them.
Understand?
So we just need to move the 200 feet from the language?
No, if you just remove the 200 feet, you're back to what the statute says. If this board wants, you want to have the ability, and you want to have the planning board to have the ability to give notice to people other than those abutting the part of this petition to be closed, the wording would be changed from 200 feet that they may give notice to all property owners whose properties abut or adjoin all of the street that's to be closed, or that has a portion petition to be closed.
So I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye. And then I can make a motion, this is the time to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to accept ordinance, that we accept ordinance number 01904 with the amendments in section 1, part B3 to read, and I'd like to ask for the assistance of the town attorney to help me with this. Notice of the request and pursuant review by the planning board shall be sent to all property owners.
Owners of all property.
Owners of all property.
All parts of the street, subject to the street closure.
Subject to street closure. So, in essence, what we're getting at, all property owners whose property abuts to the proposed closed street will receive notification.
May.
May.
And that, in your motion also needs to encompass B7, which gives this board the ability to do the same.
I'm confused now because I thought that the property owners who had property who actually abutted the street that we're proposing to close, they're going to get notification.
People who abut the section that's proposed to be closed get noticed. I might be proposing to close 100 feet of a 400-foot street. And that expansion of the language, that you may give all those notice down, all those people on the street.
I got you.
And
So the people that are not on the part that's being closed will still get notice in case they want to object.
Right, and but if the wording is going to be may instead of
May,
must.
correct. Sometimes that street has, access from another direction. This board may think it's not necessary. But if you would add to your motion that also is to apply to item B7, because that's the
B7.
one that gives the...
Correct, same language has to be changed.
I can do that too.
No, it's not a zoning ordinance.
Okay.
So, yes, I'm fine with that. So my amendment is that we accept 1904 with the amendment of section 1B3 and 7, the wording that we have put forth. And Angela, I think you probably have that clearly. So that's my motion. Is that clear enough?
No need for, it's not a zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Is that clear enough to everybody?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Okay, that amends the proposed ordinance it passed.
We have that motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Now I need a motion to adopt the statement of consistency.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, now you need a motion to adopt the ordinance. You do not need a statement of consistency. It's not a zoning ordinance.
Okay. So, run that by me.
Now you need the statement of consistency, to my understanding, since this is not a zoning ordinance, isn't necessary. But you do need a motion to adopt the ordinance as amended.
So, I thought
that you did.
Yeah. I couldn't tell if it's all encompassing or not. Okay.
It was.
That's fine.
My intention.
And it's 5-0. All righty. New business, acceptance of public art proposal.
I'm just here to introduce local artist Julia Burr. She has many years of experience creating and installing public art in many cities in the Southeast, and you have in your packet some information about her and her work, and she's here to present that information and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Hi all, I'm Julia. So you have the packet, and I think with respect to not being redundant, it might be just easiest if you have questions to ask me. Otherwise, pretty much what I would offer would be what I've already been, you've been given. This is an awesome opportunity for our town. It's an awesome opportunity for me. And getting to celebrate nature, art, and it's a gift from a fabulous foundation I don't, it's to me pretty much of a, a win-win situation for all. So are there any questions?
Julia, my only concern about it would be that would make a kid or someone an excellent sliding board.
You would have to be one heck of a Spider-Man to be able to access up to that.
So be surprised.
Well, actually I wouldn't. I've done this for 40 years. We did stuff for Disney, for Universal, and what public can access, if you think they might, they will. That's pretty much what you have to go on. So the key will be, this is just a very, very simple mock-up. This was as much for me to have a good visual. The main way they could ever get to this is if they use these cutouts for a foothold, and we're not going to place them where that's going to be a viable way to get a hold of it. Otherwise, you're going to be super tall to be able to access anything, to get up high enough to get a hold of it. With all that said, I cannot make it perfect that way. Any bridge is liable to that, any bench, anything that's in public domain,
My thought was some type of a barrier around it.
I don't think that would be necessary. Yeah.
Like I said, looking at it from the standpoint of a liability factor for the town.
Right,
we can say someone might not try to climb up on it, but if they did, and they harmed themselves, the first thing out of their mouth or their parents' mouth is, I'm going to sue the town. So that's, that's
hear
my
your concern, and all I can tell you is I have years of experience of building and fabricating in a way that makes it incredibly difficult for that to happen.
Okay. I will take your word for that.
So, that's the best, because this is my livelihood as well, and I don't have no intention of setting myself up for failure. We've already talked about mocking this up to find out where we can hold on here and swing a leg up and what we could access that. That is the best that I could do. I would hope that we wouldn't have to put a barrier around it, because that almost then is, I'm not going to say it defeats the purpose of public art, but it's making it not accessible, and the whole point of this is so that you can touch it, that you could climb it to a certain degree, the same way you can climb a slide. So I don't think this would have any more chance of hurting themselves than a slide.
Do we put
very
signage
valid
up or
comment.
something like that? Does that protect us or not? If you have signage up,
It might help with the dog, but you're getting into attractive nuisance territory, so you have to have a safe design, because we can't keep.
it's just like we have a sign, don't let their children play on the waterfall out here at the town square.
It won't hurt. I think that's protect the waterfall. We won't
Yeah.
worry about the kids.
Oh, okay.
The question, of course, was, are we, what kind of liability are we undertaking? Is it creating a nuisance? Will signs help to keep people off of it? Don't play on it. Perhaps. But the people we're worried about are the kids who probably don't read, so the signs are for the parents, obviously.
We've had, there's two other pieces around, and we've had no incidents in the last 2 to 3 years. So there's a ton of traffic in this particular location. I think that is to the advantage, because people have, they gain an ownership after a while. At first they're sort of, what have you put here? And then there's an interaction that happens, and then an ownership happens. And I've watched it happen with the other 2 sculptures that are up, and it's pretty awesome. So, and with that ownership becomes responsibility, and people going, don't do that. I walk these greenways all the time, and when I see anyone doing anything dumb, I am the first one up there. So, but I'm not the only one, because most people enjoy having this stuff around. They want art. Anything else? And the only maintenance is weed eating. You can't ask for much better than that.
All right. Any further discussion, guys? I have a motion to adopt Resolution R19-04.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And,
Thank you.
And I think, forgive me, I think Jessica probably mentioned this, but, again, this is funded by the Town of Black Mountains Greenway Commission. So we thank them as well for their work in raising the funds and working with you to make it happen. So.
All right, Black Mountain pool rate and policy revisions.
I don't mind to go through it, but I would like to have Mr. Josh Henderson, our Recreation and Parks Director, kind of go through this with you this evening.
All right. You have in front of you just our recommended pool rate revisions and also some policy changes since about 2005. I started in September of 18, so my knowledge is not too in-depth on the pool operations because I wasn't here in the summer, but based on some of the research I've done and working with our pool manager, since 2015 we haven't done any type of rate increases or changed any of the way we determine who receives what type of rate via a resident non-resident policy. So in looking at this, Beth and I got together doing some research from other municipalities that have pools, looking at their rates, and just trying to compare where we are and propose these changes you have in front of you. And so I'm just kind of here to answer any questions. We also kind of added a policy revision for safety just based on the age of requirement for a child to be without adult supervision.
So, Josh, first of all, thank you and Beth for everything you do with Parks and Rec and the pool in particular, Beth. With the safety and liability and the age change from 12 to 13, can you explain a little bit how you came to that conclusion? I mean, what is the difference between that year is what we're talking about?
So some of the issues there, the main one, and even John can attest to this, is the consent for care. When if the person is not unconscious, if I'm correct, if they're in need of care, they have to give consent to receive care. If they're not an adult or with an adult, is that how that works?
I think for y'all, we can actually treat.
Well, for a lifeguard at the pool, it comes down to consent of care. A child being without an adult, if they are choking or whatever, we can't do anything until they're unconscious. Till it becomes life-threatening. The other side of that is that pool staff, be it the pool manager, lifeguards, people working in the concession stand, are not only responsible for the pool, but for the parking lot and the lake and the things that surround that area. So a lot of their job, while it should be focused on people in the pool, also has to encompass the things that are around there as well. So just, you can imagine kids in the parking lot and things that happen there. So it's just kind of reducing that liability on our end.
And how does that relate to, like the county's policy for its pools? Does that bring us in line with that, or?
We'll have to.
Yeah.
Refer to you.
There's a lot of pools, private pools that actually their rate for their age to get in is a lot higher than that.
Okay.
But in comparability to the city pools and the county pools, yes, you're looking at 13, 14.
Okay.
Well, Ryan's thinking, like I said, my concerns would come from what I raised in the agenda meeting when we look at the cost. I think right now, when a person is hired by the town, they're given the option of a free green fees at the golf course or the ability to join the pool for free, correct?
Both those options are available to town employees.
That's for the town employee, okay. By this, you're looking at charging the town employee $50. Will there be an adjustment as far as that employee that's going to be able to play at the golf course?
No, it's $30, I think, Carlos, for an individual.
I'm sorry, 30. Yeah, I was looking, got them mixed up. The bifocal's not working right.
Okay.
So, employees at the golf course, and Dean can speak better to this to me, but we don't pay the green fees, but we do pay the cart fees, the employees. So I think that was something that was always, maybe not always, but in the past has been no charge, but that is something the employee does pay for currently.
But even if they went out there and walked the course, they're still doing it and getting a green fee. But if a person go to swim, you're asking them to pay $30.
For the entire year.
Right. Okay.
And I think the rationale behind that is just the overall cost of paying lifeguards and pool operations. We still have to pay for those things, even if it is an employee versus somebody who is paying for a pass.
And I'll just say, they did some research, like you mentioned, on some of these other localities close to us. Asheville City has no employee pass. There's no discount given to Asheville City. There is, Montreat does give an employee pass for only full-time employees. That's it. No other person in the household gets to go for free. Buncombe County, whether that be North Buncombe, Owen, Cane Creek, Irwin, etc., there is the employee does have a discount there. And Hall Creek, which is East Asheville Recreation Club, there is no employee pass at that location.
Well, it'd be my recommendation that we slash that 30 to 15.
Are you still fine with the 50 at the family pass, or do you want to cut that as well?
Well, I thought about it, cutting it to 25, but,
Well, I mean,
It's up to 5.
again, I'm in line with you on this. I'm not, I think that certainly the employees and the use by their families, it's certainly a nice perk that I think that we should offer, and I'd be fine with doing away with both, actually.
You want to go 25?
So which one are you talking about?
Number 5, employee family pass. Making it 25 for the first, and then I guess basically $12.50 for each additional.
So the family pass for currently for 50 includes up to 5 people in that family.
Mm-hmm. And then there being some type of way to determine.
Yeah, one of the issues we ran into when doing this research, and this again, I started in 18, so this is just from 18 numbers that I had access to. I want to say it was right around 50 or so employee passes that were given out last year, according to the records that I had, and probably half of that were part-time employees, with up to 5, sometimes more people listed on their pass, and we even had one person that was not an employee that had an employee pool pass. So one recommendation I would make is that if we're going to leave the employee passes the same, as that it applies to full-time employees only and not part-time employees.
I think that's more than fair.
And like you said, verification of the family member.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about giving the passes, the department heads issuing those passes, or some sort of
that was a recommendation that was kind of
there.
proposed.
Yeah.
Yes.
They have to sign off on it.
Right.
Other than that, it looks fine to me. Like I said, that'd be my recommendation.
So on number 5, we're changing that from 50 to 25.
50 to 25.
And then 25 for each.
To
$12.50.
Maybe 10. Change that to $10, maybe.
Change it to 10?
No, for each extra individual.
For the extra
individuals.
Rather than 12.
From $12.50?
No, just
Rounding down.
I would say $30 would be a employee pass. That's my number that comes in my head, but
For which one?
for the number 5, the family pass, $30.
You want to go 30 with that? And 10 for the additional family member? I can do it with that.
Keep it simple. You live with that?
I retract my motion and go with Alderman's total.
So how about numbers, I'm sorry, how about the employee individual pass? Is that, are you gonna cut that or just leave that or make that free?
I'd put that at 15. I'd half it.
No, I'd do 20. I'd do 20.
You are a negotiator, Mr.
Keeps it simpler.
See, that's that mathematician coming through.
Keeps it simpler. Not much change involved, the change easier.
All right, we've got it, number 5 at $30 and $10 for each individual. And then an employee individual pass is going to be $20. Do I have that in the form of a motion to accept the revised with these 2 revisions?
Also move.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All righty. That should be ready.
Oh, let's back up. There's no part-time, right? Did we? Yeah, okay, yeah. Let's make sure. Okay.
There's nothing on there that says anything about part-time. It's all employee.
Question, when does the pool open?
It opens Memorial Weekend.
Memorial Weekend.
Now, I think I do have a question with that Mr. Dean would ask. You know, in the past when we did all of these, of course, we also included the pool staff. I will tell you in looking at the numbers, even myself, I mean, I never came to the pool unless I was working, but I was there every day, sometimes 6, 7 days a week. So, you know, obviously I didn't use the pool pass. I did have 1 or 2 families that did use them because there were quite a few in their family that would come on a regular basis. And of course, you know, they're working all the time. So what would the board propose in terms of the pool staff? Would they be under the same as this, because they are considered seasonal employees?
For them to use the pool when they're not there, when they're not working?
Correct. For their families. What would you propose for that?
I'd be full-time. I'd be fine with it.
Just like it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be fine.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right. In communication from staff, town attorney, Mr. Sneed.
The only thing I have, which I told in the agenda, our act or bill is ready to go to the legislature to put us to even number election years. It does read, as your resolution did a few months ago, that the way we'll go into even year cycles is it does bump each term out 1 year. And so the bill matches the resolution. If this board wants to change that in any fashion, probably now is the time to address it because the legislature, that's a local bill that will go through fairly quickly once it's in the pot down there.
Just a thank you to the folks with the Swananoa Valley Martin Luther King Breakfast Committee. They had the 29th celebration, I guess that's what you could call it, this past Saturday at Camp Dorothy Walls. It was well attended. We had over 250 people there. We had a great speaker who did an excellent job. Excellent job. Folks who were able to be there from the board, from the town, we appreciate it. I mean, I heard reports that this was the best one ever. And, you know, I think it's the kind of occasion that's kind of a sad occasion, but it was also a joyous occasion, and that the community really supported the endeavor. And it's just going to get bigger from here. So all you folks who made it out, thank you. If you weren't able to make it out, but you made a donation towards the scholarships, thank you, and thank you.
Carlos, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Being the MC, but I know you got lots of help from
Who?
the better half.
That's always.
But you did a really good job.
Cut the camera off now.
Anyone else, Alderman? I only have one thing to mention to say, and that's the police report that we got, guys. If y'all don't recognize excellence of what's going on in this town, then what was presented is not going to make you change your mind. I can remember 50 years ago when this little old town had one police car that was shared, and it was a used ex-highway patrol car. And they just kept it hot and rotating it back and forth. We have come so far and continue to come further every day. We've got a top-notch police force, and I'm extremely proud of them and appreciate everything that they do in this community and the work they do on and off and out of uniform. And with that being said, call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.